Thank you, everybody, for coming here. And also, hello to the online viewers. We're going to be a bit informal, so I'm happy that we have this setup. So this is the first time that actually I'm joining in a research conversation that we're going to have a conversation. So and we're going to talk about quantitative research. But actually, I'm just going to present to you a one particular study that we conducted uh, for um, uh, for ROR4D, and this is about the impact of OER. And we're going to have a light conversation. So I'm just going to tell you the story of how we started with the project, and we started 2014 and we ended the project 2017, and it's not yet finished actually. So in terms of the other obligations, so we're going to talk about the this context of how do we really engage in research from conceptualizing the proposal up to publication. So I hope that we're going to have a lively conversation. So I will stop in my presentation so that we can actually have a dialogue on if there are things that you want to comment on or if there are things that you want to be clarified about. Okay, so let me start. So I'm calling this a journey in quantitative research. Um, I know we're coming from different fields. Ganun naman dito sa atin sa OU, di ba? So I'm really coming from the health perspective. But of course, I think the common thread amongst us is that we're um, we're dealing with education. So either we're faculty members or we're doing research for education. So so I think that would be the bottom line for all of us. And the research that I'm going to share with you is actually about the impact of open educational resources in teaching and learning. So let me begin about this journey that we had. So of course there was first the call for proposal. Um, so for researchers, I mean the beginning of your story in your quantitative research would be different. Sometimes it's because it's a requirement in your master's program, or an interest that you really want to pursue, or sometimes because there's a call. And this is actually what happened with us. So there was a call for proposal in 2014, and the call was made by IDRC, the International Development Research Center. And this was a big project that was organized by ROR4D. It's Research on Open Educational Resources, ROR for Development. So and this was managed by University of Cape Town. But one of the sub projects where we came in was the impact studies on open educational resources. So that was the call. That was the start of the call. You can see that usually the time that's given to you to come up with a proposal, you don't have actually a year. So ito 1.5 months. So in a way, uh, that's enough time if you really have an interest in a particular topic, and you know what's happening, you'd be able to come up with a proposal. And usually naman they have specific guidelines for you to comply with so that your proposal can be considered. So it's like a competition. So as when you prepare your proposal, you really have to showcase what is it that's going to be unique, and at the same time addressing all the requirements of the call. So I'll tell you more about that later. Then the next in the journey is the workshop. So in IDRC, there's this process that after a call, they usually give you time to refine your proposal, and also they give you an opportunity to meet with other researchers. So for this particular study, from August 31, then they actually arranged for a workshop, December of 2014, to for all the researchers to meet, to gather together, and uh, and discuss what are their particular research, and also learn from each other, because eventually that's the idea, for all the researchers to have a common ground, and also a sharing of their experiences, and also what are their plans for their research. And then the submission of the revised proposal. So this is how long it takes. So nearly a year from the draft proposal to the final proposal that's submitted to the funding agency. And then the actual conduct of the research. So we did this from June 2015 to December 2016. So this is where the usual research process, from ethical clearance to actual data collection to data analysis and writing of the report. So this is 1.5 years. So actually, it's a good a time, I think, a duration for the work. But there are, of course, challenges along the way, and I'm also going to share with you what were those challenges, especially in our setting. So this is just to give you the overview of what I'm going to present. And then in March 2017, we had an opportunity to present the results of the study in the Open Education Global that was held in Cape Town. So I will also share with you what happened there. And then finally, the research dissemination and publication activities. So we will end our discussion there. So that's the scope of what I'm going to discuss with you. Any question at this point? Wala pa. Okay, so let me continue. So, okay, the call for proposal. So as I was saying, so there was this call that was launched July 15, and we were given a deadline to submit a proposal before August 31. And normally, when you're answering for a call for proposal, you need to pay attention to what's really being asked for you to be considered. And the questions that were asked at the time were these questions. So, what is it? What is the size of the grant? Who can apply? What can the research cover? What is the research duration? And then there's the detailed call, the scope of research, and then information on how to apply, and dates to remember. So, of course, it's important that we know what is it. That would be the context of the whole thing. So if we do not understand open educational resources, for example, then we will have no, will actually be, the chances of our getting the grant would be low. So we really have to be very familiar with what was the call about. And given our experience here in UP Open University, we've been discussing open educational resources since 2011, and we have crafted our own OER policy. So I think that these were the advantage for us, for the team, when we submitted the proposal. And it's also important, next is to look at the size of the grant, because then that would also give you an idea of how big should be the scope of the project. So for this particular study, the grant was 50,000 Canadian dollars. So so I don't know how much was that in Philippine peso. Ilan? 2.5 ba? Parang hindi ganun yung na-receive namin. But anyway, so it wasn't that big actually, but good enough that for us to be able to do what we really wanted to do. Anyway, we are, as I was saying, we were and we are still are interested in open educational research resources, and doing a research on this topic is really very important for the university. So especially during this time, 2014, we really don't know whether the use of open educational resources in our course materials are uh, are actually good for us, and should be evaluated. So this was an opportunity for us to identify what are the outcomes that we should be looking at in terms of the practice of adopting open educational resources in our course materials. Then who can apply? So again, although there's this call for, it's a wide call, still we have to be very particular that we actually match their criteria of who can apply. So, so otherwise, you won't be considered. And since this call was for Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, so we were actually candidates for the recipient of the grant. What can the research cover? So there are also instructions on what the research should cover. The title was Impact of Open Educational Resources on Education and Training. So of course, the proposal that should be submitted should be aligned to this because this was the research topic. Research duration, so we were given roughly 2 years to finish the project. So, and then there's the detailed call. So it's outlining the steps that should be accomplished. So there are milestones that are identified for this particular research. So the research activities that you should also put in your research proposal should be parallel to those suggested timelines. And how to apply, so the usual, where to submit, and what should be the requirements to be included in the proposal, and the dates, very important. So should submit early enough so that it's showing that you're actually very interested in the call. So that was the call for the proposal. And luckily, we were among the ones who were accepted. So there were 7 projects who were accepted for this grant and represented by different countries in Asia. So I will show you later. So what you can see in the picture is Wawasan Open University. So they were actually the university that administered the research for IDRC because IDRC is based in Canada. The whole project, or we call it the mother project, was organized, handled by Cape Town University. But Wawasan was the one who managed the Asian part, the impact of OER in education and training. So you can see in this picture some of the ones who attended the first workshop to refine the proposal. So you submitted the draft, you were accepted, but you still have to refine the proposal and an opportunity to meet with the other proponents of the other projects. And as I said, there were 7. You can see in the picture, there's one from Pakistan. So that's me and Patricia. There's one from UK. No, I forget her name. I'll remember later. And then there's Matt from IDRC, the one behind the statue. Then another from Africa, Adala from Africa. And then from Cape Town, there's Henry from University of Cape Town. And there's another guy, I've forgotten who he is. But anyway, this was a good chance to meet with the others and also to try to look at what the others are doing as well. So this was the acceptance. So from the August 31 deadline, so they were able to tell us the result of the the call for proposal through email, October 29. So that's also like how many months? And this was the whole group during that workshop. So it's actually a fun thing. I mean, you wouldn't imagine that doing research would also give you an opportunity to meet with other people, other educators in the region, and also not only in Asia, because you can see some of them from Canada and from Africa. So, and then after that meeting, you need to revise your proposal. So that was the expectation. So we had to revise the proposal. We had an opportunity to meet with what we so-called the research supervisors. So we had Cheryl, who was the main supervisor for the entire project on OER. So when I came back from that workshop and met with the team, so we were able to refine the proposal, and this is what we ended up with. So the research is about exploring the impact of OER on the cost and quality of course materials in postgraduate distance education courses, particularly in the fields of health, education, and development. So it's actually a big scope, I mean, this project, because we're trying not only to look at the evaluation of the quality of the course materials using OER, but also trying to look at the cost, whether we're actually having some cost savings from shifting to this. If you remember, we used to have printed materials that were written by our authors. So this is what we used to call the print-based course material. So it takes time to develop them. But with the use of OER, so we were able to cut down the time given to the faculty of the course authors to complete the modules. But at the same time, we're also maximizing the use of the open educational resources. So the writer can now focus on the learning activities that can be designed in the course materials. So that was really the main idea when we shifted to using OERs in our not only OERs but resource-based course, when we shifted to resource-based course materials. But we were interested particularly in not only the resource-based, but what if it's open educational resources that are being integrated in the course materials. So our interests were, what are the costs of developing course materials using OER? Do we have savings from doing this, from shifting to this? What is the impact of using OER on the quality of the course materials? And based on our review of literature, these were the indicators of quality that we were interested in. First, the alignment with course objectives, the variety of resources, the currency of content, or how update, whether the materials were updated or up to date, adaptation to the course context, the design of the learning activities, the use of authentic assessment, and the student engagement with the materials. So these were the indicators of quality that we were looking at in this study. And finally, what are the factors that affect the cost and quality of OER-based course materials? So if you look at it, it's not really that complicated, except that there's the cost dimension, there's the quality dimension, and then you have the three different fields. So you're going to look at health, at education, and then the development courses. So medyo dumami. Dun siya naging komplikado because but then we were thinking, we really wanted to find out from the different disciplines, because that would also give us a clue in terms of the adoption of OER in the different fields here in UPOU. So is there a difference in the adoption of the OER in the course materials, comparing health and education and development studies? So that was a side, um, that was also what we also wanted to do, aside from looking at the cost and the quality. In terms of the design, so it's really a descriptive study, but looking at the cost analysis and the survey of the impact of the OER on the quality. And the sampling technique that we developed, where we actually used purposive sampling. So we had a criteria on what courses should be included in the study. And these are the criteria. The course should be under a master's program. So all the undergraduate programs, automatically, we did not consider them. So we were only interested in the postgraduate courses. And next, that OER-based course materials are used in the course. So we must remember that this was still in the early, at least in our adoption of OER in our course materials. We had the first policy, I think 2011, but I think we finalized it 2012. So it's not really that long. I mean, in terms of our adoption of OER in the course materials. Then we particularly looked at the courses offered during the academic year 2015 to 2016. So we looked at 2 semesters. And finally, it has to be offered through our learning management system, my portal, because otherwise, then we will have difficulty uh, assessing, reviewing these modules. So these were the criteria that we used for the sampling. And for the data collection procedure, it can be divided into two. So we had costing, focusing on the course authors. So we actually conducted interviews of course authors to find out about the factors that affect the costing of the development of the course materials. And then we had an online survey on the quality of the course materials, targeting faculty members and also students in the selected courses. And for the data analysis, we looked at the uh, cost analysis, the comparison of the quality of the courses in the 3 disciplines, and then finally the cost effectiveness. So trying to look at the cost and the quality at the same time. And being an IDRC project, so there were other considerations that had to be very clear in the proposal, including gender considerations, of course, ethical considerations, communication strategy, and risk management. So I think for all of us, ethical considerations were a bit familiar, right? Since this is already institutionalized that all research should undergo ethical clearance. But other provisions like gender consideration, so making sure that there's no gender bias in the selection of respondents, and uh, and also making sure that the questionnaires that we are um, sending out do not reflect any gender bias. So we have to be careful as well. And communication strategy also. So what are the plans for this particular study to be disseminated to the community in this community in this instance would be UP Open University. And risk management. So trying to identify what are the potential risks for the study not um, to be aborted or to be delayed, and having the steps to make sure that these risks will not happen. So they are very detailed in when they ask you for this particular information to be included in the proposal. So finally, we did it, and this is the research team. So there were 5 of us. Of course, kilala nyo naman si Cha, andito si Cha. So Cha was in charge of the education courses. And Rita for the health courses. Joanne for the development courses. So we had a bit of a difficulty in terms of defining development course ba or management course ba? What about courses from the FICS? Kasi parang information communication studies. But we reasoned out that we do have courses that can be categorized as development courses. And and we also realized that this is an opportunity to look at that particular area, the courses that can be classified development studies. And also Millet, so as the university researcher of Oasis, and of course the course materials development being under the office of Oasis, then it was also important that she was part of the team, because all the results of this particular study will also benefit Oasis. So what were the schedule of activities? So this was in the proposal. So we had so remember we had the call deadline August 31, 2014. Then December 2014 was when we had the workshop to revise the proposal. Then uh, then the actual awarding of the research grant happened March. So talagang may mga delays. But we used that time from March to May to do these activities, organizing the research team, discussing the details of the research with the team. So because these are we have 5 members in the research team, identifying courses to be included, informing the university about the project, and also preparing for the ethical clearance of the study. And then we spent June to August 2015 to conduct the first workshop. So amongst us, we had to do several workshops. So this is a bit different. And maybe the other research studies would have training activities. But in our case, instead of training, we realized that what we really needed was a workshop, so that all the co-researchers handling the health, the education, and the development courses would actually come up with we would actually follow the same standards in terms of data collection, data cleaning, and also data analysis. And of course, even before we went there, we had to make sure that the questionnaires that we are going to use would really fit what's needed by the study. So we really spent a lot of time uh, defining what should be included in the questionnaires and refining these questionnaires. So yun ang nakahaba talaga dun sa study na to. And another workshop on measuring impact. So we tried to separate yung doing the cost part and also then doing the impact on the quality part. And then the third workshop was about consolidation of the data analysis, the costing and impact. But I will tell you later on. This was the plan, but in some of the activities, we had to adjust the dates. So we were supposed to finish ng August 2016, but we ended up finishing, I think, end of the year na of 2016. Okay, so we had to also, of course, review literature to come up with the questionnaire. So with the review of literature, so we were able to see that it's important that we know what are the factors that we should be looking at when we review the modules. And this is what we were able to come up with. So it's important that we know what are the sources of the OERs, the types of these resources, and also the licensing. And so this is actually the module review form that we used. So after reviewing the literature. So it's a bit tedious. So this was the work of Millet. So Millet, as the university researcher, she had to look at all the modules of the courses. Imagine how many modules do we have per course. Yes. Yeah, that's right. Sige, you can use the microphone. Yeah.
Because there were two.
Right. Right. I remember. Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
So that they also understand how.
Right. So Millet actually did the preliminary, but then we can call you the coordinators for each of the courses to do the assessment of the resources.
Yes, ma'am. Basically, there were two major steps in the
Module
module
review.
review
Yes.
alone.
Yes.
So we looked at each course. I mean, we had to look at each of the courses, and then we had to look at each of the resources
Resources.
in each of the module
Right.
per.
Right.
And then after we did that module review, it's when Ate Melat came in and collate everything that we produced in terms of the module review form. So basically, it's how tedious
Mm-mm.
that module review was done, because you have to look at every resource and every item in the module per
Per
course.
course. So the thing is, the complication of in one course, how many
Many
modules do you
modules there
have?
are?
So sometimes there are 12
12,
modules to 18
18
modules. In
modules.
health, we found out that there are 18
18
modules.
modules.
And then in each module, you have like how many
Yeah,
resources?
for example, for that one, you have one, two, six, and meron pa yan, I think,
Meron pa sa
eight
baba
pa.
actually,
Opo.
oo.
So, in
So
one module
that's
alone,
just one module. So that's why it took us longer than what we were
we were
planning.
planning.
So we thought we could finish the module review in 2 months. We ended up with 6 months.
Or even longer.
Or and then we had to go back to other courses
Courses.
because there were changes made also by course
Course
authors. They added some
authors.
more resources. But the thing was, it was important that the tool that we were using for the review uh, was actually was there. So we were able to develop that tool. So that helped us in the review of the modules. Tedious lang talaga kasi madami. But you can see with this sample, it's you have to list all the resource titles that are under the modules, and then identify whether these resources were from internet, whether from scanned copies of printed texts, and uh, and then have to categorize them into what type of resource they are. So we have a list of categories, and then the resource license. So whether these were copyrighted, and sometimes you can, as you can see here in this example, we weren't sure whether these were copyrighted or whether these were open access. So these were our challenges as we were doing this module review. And at the end, the last column, we in the beginning we had several categories for the type of resource. So you can see here subtype 3A. So we were thinking there are resources that are full OER. Some would be what was the term that we use? Full OER, partial OER, and not OER. Yes, so we had several categories, but
Yeah,
in the end, we had to just
say it's,
say it in three
yeah, it was full OER, partial
partial and
OER, and
not
not at all.
OER. So
Um,
because we were finding it more difficult to have so many
Categories.
subtypes or categories of resources. And then this was the example of how we deployed the survey. So this was another challenge that we had. So when we were about to send the questionnaire, we we ran into this problem of how can we send this to particular students who are taking the course, because of course they can only evaluate the course that they're taking so that they're familiar already with the resources, right? And what we did, we actually created Google Forms wherein initially we were thinking we'll just give the questionnaire to the students and they review their course sites. That was our plan. And then the questionnaire they will just have to answer it. But it wasn't that easy actually. We had to devise the Google form because we were thinking that would also make our lives easier in terms of collating the data. So so imagine how many Google forms we had to create. Cha, how many did you make?
It's like in one course we pick three modules.
Right. In the
So
beginning,
we
we were saying all
all
modules,
modules
but then we realized with 12 to 18 modules per course, that's impossible to do.
impossible. I mean,
So
we may not get a good response rate from the student
exactly,
if you have if you'll have them respond to 18 forms in
yeah,
one course, and if they are enrolled in two courses, then they'll have to respond to like 30 forms.
yeah.
So
So
that's
we
something
scrapped
that
that
is,
idea.
yeah, we
We
had to
had to
choose.
rethink, and we had to have a criteria for choosing which modules in the course
Course.
should be evaluated.
So we had another set of criteria again for choosing which module, because we cannot do that in random. So we had some criteria. So we reevaluated again each module and then pick three. From three, we have to have one Google form for the student. So like
So
madami ma'am, super dami.
so it's like so if in one course you would have around 3 modules to evaluate. So we'll see later on what was the sample size was like in each of the fields. So suffice it to say that it was really tedious doing the module review and then also the survey. Okay. So this was the summary of the questionnaires, the tools, the data collection tools, and the focus of the research. So in costing the development of the course materials, these were covered by the module review and also the course author interview. The factors affecting costs were covered also by the same tools. And then for the indicators on the quality of course materials, these were covered by the module review and the questionnaire for students and faculty. And then for the impact of OER in the quality of course materials, the same. So it's the module review and the questionnaires. So so we already started talking about the challenges. So these were, at least now I can remember the challenges, but I'm sure Cha meron pang iba. so so one is the need for thorough criteria on the inclusion of course packages in the study. So it's not only the modules, which modules, pero what courses should be included, because we also don't want to be biased that we're picking the best ones, because we wanted to have an idea of the quality of the course materials that we have. And as we were saying kanina, yung review of modules, this really took time because there were so many layers to the review. So the modules, the resources, and not only the resources, you will see later on dun sa aming questionnaire, pati learning activities had to be also reviewed. So so actually what was needed was for the coordinators, the co-researchers, to get into the course itself, kasi they need to read the resources. So it was like they're also the students of the course. Because if you don't really read the resources, then you wouldn't be able to answer some of the questions being asked by the research. So makikita natin mamaya yung mga yan. What else? Lack of engagement from course authors in answering the cost questionnaire. So we were thinking we'll be able to interview a number of course authors, but then it became very difficult also to find common time, and also the length of time needed to finish one interview. So it's a questionnaire, guided interview using a questionnaire. So so we ran into problems also there. And then the survey on the quality of course materials through the Google form generated low response. So what more kung lahat ng modules dun sa course na wala sigurong sumagot. So that was also a challenge. That's why we had to extend yung aming data collection. And lastly, having different disciplines in the study also meant challenges in coordination. So lalo na, 'di ba yung work natin sa OpenU. So you wear so many hats. So may administrative load ka, may teaching load ka, may research load ka, aside from the committee works. So kaya it was a challenge also to schedule group meetings for us. In the beginning, it was a bit easier, but later on, 2016, 2017, it became more difficult. And I guess these are the common, I think, challenges that big research projects would really encounter. Okay, so given these challenges, we were still able to report our preliminary findings. Again, in one of the meetings, this time was held in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So, uh, so it's basically the same group who attended the inception, not the inception meeting, but the first meeting that was held in Malaysia. And in this particular workshop, we were already discussing about our plans for data analysis. So the assumption during this meeting was that we were about to finish data collection, and so we were planning already for the data analysis. These were the frameworks that we use for the data analysis. So for example, to show the impact of OER on the cost of the course materials, so our assumptions were it's either the cost of using OER would mean more cost or less cost. So it's either. So more cost because it takes more time to use OER since one need to evaluate the OER. Or it takes more time to use OER since one need to revise and or remix materials. So these are assumptions. And on the other hand, it could mean less cost because it takes less time to use OER since one does not develop the resource itself compared to if you're going to write the whole thing. And it takes less time to use OER than time to gain access to non-OER materials. So if you are using copyrighted materials, you need to order these copyrighted materials. So it may also take you more time to do that. So if you notice in these assumptions, we were just focusing on the element of time and how it affects cost. So we did not look into other dimensions of cost. We were focusing more on the time element to develop the course materials. So, and what else? So we were also looking at other factors that might influence the length of time, such as the type of resource needed, the length of the resource, the type of use. So we were thinking that we need to explore how the OERs are being used, whether they're being used simply reusing them, or are there other course authors who are revising or remixing these OERs in their courses, the types of license, and also the discipline. So we were trying to find out whether these factors influence the amount of time needed in the development of the course. So why time? So why we were looking at time in terms of cost? Because our assumption was that the longer the time that you're doing the developing the course materials, then it would mean more cost. So that was our assumption. And then in terms of quality, so we had to show that the use of OER impact on the quality in terms of content and pedagogy. So as I was saying kanina, we were interested in whether it improves alignment with the discipline, whether it ensures accuracy, completeness, and currency of content, or whether it improves the alignment between objectives and instructional content, whether the course cater to different types of learners, yung inclusivity, and whether it enables the provision of variety of perspectives, demonstrating social, cultural, and gender inclusivity. So these elements were all part of the questionnaire. So these were all measured in the questionnaire. So there's more actually. So whether the resources allows learners to interact more with the resource, so meaning to say engagement, whether it facilitates scaffolding of learning, whether it allows learners to demonstrate multi-domain and higher level learning, whether it provides more opportunities for learners to explore a concept or principle or practice a skill through application in their own setting and context. So again, this is about engagement. And whether it develops learners' independence and self-reliance. And finally, whether it allows learners to collaborate. So all these dimensions were actually in the questionnaires. So we were able to measure this through the questionnaire on impact on quality. So what was the assumption? So are OERs better in quality than the non-OER? So we were thinking since OER are more accessible, then the instructor has a greater variety of resources to choose from and has more opportunities for finding good or better quality resources as compared to copyrighted materials. So that was the assumption of the study. And what else? So we were also thinking that quality is something that comes from how the resource is used. So meaning to say, you might have a very good resource, but then you actually do not maximize the opportunity that this resource gives to you. So it depends on the learning activities that you would actually write around the resource for your students. So so what we were saying, the OERs lend themselves to certain types of learning activities, which are characteristic of course materials of a level of quality. So since you're not actually writing the content now, You should have more time to really understand what's already written, the resource, and then how to design learning activities around it to foster learning in the amongst the students. So that was the assumption. And the indicators of the quality of material, so these were the ones that we listed. Disciplinal fitness of resources selected, alignment of resources with course objectives, variety of resources. So meaning to say, the more variety of resources, the better is the course material. That was also our assumption. The use of narrative versus interactive resources. So when we used to have the printed modules, remember the ones that Oasis used to distribute, uh, but then we have the use of technology wherein you can actually allow your students to have interactivity using softwares. So we were also trying to look at we're looking at that as an indicator of quality of your material. The use of adaptive resources like tutorials and quizzes that are available in our learning management system, the resource use or learning activities enabled by OERs also. So in some of these OERs, they also have specific learning activities that you can actually adapt. What else? Types of learning activities, whether we're actually able to reach evaluation and synthesis or the levels 5 and 6 in Bloom's taxonomy, and use of authentic assessment. And then finally, the provision of supplementary and enrichment resources. So these were the considerations when we were planning for the data analysis. So so tedious ano? Okay pa kayo? So what happened then? What do you think happened? So this was the product of the workshop in Colombo. I think Colombo happened, wow, hindi ko na maalala. 2016 to eh. So so I can't, April or May, I can't remember now. But while we were having that workshop, we were still doing data collection. So we were still doing data collection and we were struggling particularly with some aspects of the data collection. So, but the good news was that we were able to manage it. And March 2017, we were able to present the study in a panel presentation in the Open Education Global in Cape Town. So the research team, we were able to go to Cape Town to present the results of the study. So ito na yung results ng study. Unless you have questions at this point for clarification before I discuss the results. Or if there's anything, chat, that you want to add that I may have forgotten. Pero, sige, that's a good question. Cha, anong ginawa mo sa respondents na ayaw sumagot?
Syempre, hindi mo naman sila magpipilit. So,
Yeah.
but we tried very hard to reach out to them in all possible ways and means.
Actually, I can also ask Myra kasi Myra helped out
Yeah.
in the health studies. So Myra, what did, kasi actually maraming sumagot sa International Health Program. Dahil kay Myra, Myra, anong ginawa mo? Kasama ba sa grade nila yon? May plus ba sa ano yon,
Oh,
participation?
bawal sa ethics. No, ano, paulit-ulit. You keep on repeating that you have to every module discussion, kunyari may question sila. You keep on posting dun sa here is the link, kindly answer it repeatedly. Paulit-ulit siya. I think depende din sa character ng respondents. Usually, yung mga nasa health kasi, they are responsive dun sa perhaps because we are sensitive enough dun sa needs nung faculty or nung taong may kailangan. Depende sa respondents, but you really have to repeatedly tell it to them. Tapos at the end of the semester, I will not post ang ginawa ko, I will not post your grade. Kasi nagpo-post ako ng grade sa course site para alam nila. I will not post your grade unless otherwise you answer the question. So, oo. So, ayun. Hindi naman siya threat. Ha? Hindi. Ano lang yon, parang ano lang. But of course, I post the ano tawag to, grade as agreed the date as agreed by both of us nung estudyante. Pero kailangan talaga paulit-ulit. It's different. It's very, very hard to convince them because it's online, di ba? Parang hindi ka papansin. Unlike pag face-to-face guided, ay napipilitan talaga sila na sagutin. At saka, oo,
Ay, may tumatakbo rin ba kahit
sa face-to-face. Oh, siguro it's you have to learn the art of persuasion. Parang ganon. Para ma-convince sila. So, yung paulit-ulit. May time pa nga na sabi ko kay Donna was the one, yung Donna handa was the one handling that. De, paulit-ulit mo. Twice a month, pinapaulit-ulit namin. Pabalik ba, paano-ano yung ano. Then, nakakakuha kami 3, minsan 2, isa per month.
Pero marami kayo actually.
Oo.
Pinakamaraming, oo. So, yung sa international, that's also another factor. Yeah.
Oo.
I have my
Sample,
classes were very
class size.
small. Yung classes under my field, like less than 10. Of less than 10, say you 20% yung respondents mo. 2 na lang yun. Maswerte talaga kung meron akong 2,
Yeah,
3.
that was also a factor kasi the
Yeah.
class sizes in health were actually big
Big
enough.
enough.
Oo. Although in the nursing courses, hindi din ganun kasi kadami yung nag-responde. Mas
Yes,
marami from the international health. So I think it worked yung sinasabi mong persuasion or pangungulit so sa kanila. So that's why we had to extend yung data collection period. So we were thinking would be through in term parang 2 months lang yung ating 'di ba? That was the projected, pero it took us more than a year to finish yung data collection. We will see later. So I'll show it later. Dun sa results. Iba-iba. So what other challenges pa ba? So do you have other questions? Or maybe you have similar experience that you want to share with us? So
Yeah, I think, ma'am, there's a big challenge. The big challenge was actually our courses are very heterogeneous when it comes to form, content and form. Of course, the content we understand, but the form is something that we really had to work on. Because remember, our survey forms came out after the offering. There was one part of the survey forms that came after the offering of the course. So kaya nga hindi natin ang ginawa natin, hindi pwedeng dun sila mag-evaluate because some course sites are actually closed by then. And we want the students to have an easier look at the course site. So kung makikita niyo yung course site namin, we had to make a uniform course site for every course under my field. So essentially, I had to make a new course site for each of the courses na
that's
part.
true. So kaya we had to adjust some of our processes so that we can actually generate more participation from the respondents. So and also with the course author, so we also had difficulty. We were projecting now we'd be able to get more course authors to be involved, but actually it was very difficult. So I think the fact, if I can remember correctly, one of the things also was that we were asking them to cost. We were not, of course, asking them how much, what do you think is the cost. These were not the questions. The questions were like, how long did it take you to finish writing module 1, module 2, module 3? So it's like, again, building the time element needed for the development of the course, building it into the model. So for many of the course authors, they actually had difficulty recalling how long did it take them to finish writing or developing the course material. So we also had questions like, in terms of looking for resources. So did it take you more time to find resources rather than if you were to write it? So on that part, that was really difficult. That was difficult to quantify. Kasi remember, quantitative research to eh. But, but many of the processes were actually also qualitative. So kaya para siyang, we were able to quantify certain things, but we had to rely on qualitative data for some. So we had to be very careful on what questions to ask so that so that we can actually get the measurement of the variables that we want. Kaya kaya yun yung aming mga difficulty. We had to be very sure with our assumptions. That's why I presented kanina yung assumptions. Kasi pag hindi ka rin klaro sa assumptions mo, then you might get lost in the amount of data that you are getting. So that's how complicated it was.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
If I may add,
Yeah.
when you are developing a project kasi you're trying to conceptualize it from the beginning to end, what kind of research data you'd like to present and how you'd like to present it. Hanggang dun yung inaabot. Dun pa lang yun sa inception pa lang yun, ha. So if you really want to have a successful project, you think of it from the beginning until the end. Now, in our case, it was very clear to us what we wanted in the end. And from the beginning, alam na namin yun. Pero yung in between, we had difficulty because this is a course development, somehow a course development project. And each of the course authors have their own unique course development strategies and techniques. So we would like to have a quantitative data at the end, pero hindi ganun kadaling i-quantify because they have their own ways on doing things. Gusto sana namin defined yun. Kasi kung quantitative yan, dapat isa lang yun, di ba? Pero hindi sila
Kasi
ganon.
halimbawa, what took you the
Longest
longest time to
time to
write?
write.
Is it the first
First
module,
module,
the middle
module
module?
or
So may
the
mga ganon.
oh.
So
Pero hindi sila ganun
hindi,
magsulat.
yeah.
May mga authors
Yeah.
na para makasulat sila, sisimulan
They
nila
were
sa
telling
pinakadulo.
us, okay, they were telling us sisimulan lahat.
Lahat. Lahat
So lahat
may
sisimulan nila and then sa kanila babalik-balikan.
likan.
Eh di hindi nila ma-estimate talaga how much time they spent in developing the
Yeah.
module. So
Yes.
we ran into these problems na it's really difficult to quantify things, lalo na kung depende kasi kung what are you trying to quantify. But I think given this experience, uh, we can actually devise a better tool next time, right? And it has to be prospective siguro. Kasi ang technique din ng costing what was retrospective eh. So they already developed it in the past and then we were asking them questions what happened in the past. So kaya medyo mahirap talaga din for them to recall. Pero if we were to design this again, oo, so but if we were to ask them again siguro in the future, baka kailangan may lag sila, 'di ba? Parang then that can be one technique. So yun yung mga iniisip natin. Or it can be a monitoring tool to be submitted sa Oasis na every semester. So what have you finished? Something like that. If we really want to quantify. So ang ang meron yon. Pero kasi remember we were costing the amount of time for them to write. Yung ating records naman sa office ay first draft, 'di ba? Tapos final version. So contract signing, first draft, final version. So these are actually will not give us the data that we want in terms of the time that they spent in developing the course materials. So kaya importante talaga na naiisip as Cha was saying from beginning to end and be ready for the possible hiccups along the way and how to address them. Okay, sige Seth.
I'm just curious to know po. Kasi you mentioned earlier na from the proposal pa lang, you had to indicate the dates already. And then you also mentioned that there have been delays. So, what were the repercussions kung ano, parang did you have to stick to the dates that you indicated, kung gaano ka strict?
With funding agency, they have clear rules naman. So what we had to do is to, of course, communicate with them that there are delays and what would this mean in terms of achievement of the milestones in the project that was submitted to them. So kaya as researchers, we have to communicate these things. So hindi pwedeng hindi ka na lang sasubmit na walang explanation. Dapat bago pa dumating yung deadline, you already communicate with the research supervisors that you're having these delays, transparency exactly, and also and that you're doing something about it. So that also gives them reassurance that the project will be finished. So ito yung importante din na natutunan namin. So in fact, we also found out na hindi lang naman yung research namin ang may delay. So there were also delays in other projects. But that's not to say na uh, tutularan sila, pero it also gives us at least hindi lang kami yung hindi lang kami yung nadidelay pala. Pero they were actually very supportive naman. So when you try to explain, communicate with them, and also what steps are being done to put the study on track. So they actually gave us an allowance. It's not only for our project but for the entire all the research projects under the OER Impact Asia. So we were, I think, given mga 6 months na extension. So before we finish the project.
Our project was very promising. I should say that. Of course, when you talk to us and ask for our ask that we agree on participating in that project, I believe na talagang maganda yung project. But as we go along the kind of the instruments that we produced, grabe talaga. Parang oh, yeah. Parang sabihin, ma'am, ito po yung present mo na proposal sa akin. Ito na po yung ending. Pero kasi nag-develop yung project, nag-morph yung project into something that is much bigger than we expected. O I personally expected. But during that time, it was okay for me kasi na-realize ko na ito dapat pala yung level niya nung simula pa lang. Hindi ko siya nakita na ganun siya kalaki nung simula, pero na-realize ko na hindi, ito talaga yung kailangan for us to be able to do to answer the research questions. It's just that the volume of work that was entailed from us, masyado lang siyang malaki. And I think if we were given more time for that, we could have, yeah.
Kung nakafocus tayo doon.
2016 kasi was the height of everything sa ating lahat eh. So, madaming nangyari. Hindi din eh. I don't think so. Kasi kunwari ako, I have to see it from the module review up to the interview. That's the only time I can sue them together. So,
Connected kasi sila ng process.
like yung interview sa course authors, hindi ko yun magagawa without the module review form.
We really had to finish the module review because
form.
that's needed for the next questions like the quality and the cost.
Nang comment nga nila nung ibang authors, mas alam mo pa yung course kaysa sa akin. Sabi ko, yeah ma'am, inaral ko po lahat ng laman ng course site mo. Tapos, ito po yan eh. Ma'am, do you remember this particular resource? Ganun sila parang, bakit alam mo yan? Ma'am, binasa ko po yun eh.
Ma'am, estudyante niyo po ako.
Hindi naman. So, inaral namin siya para meron kaming connection dun sa content tsaka sa author. Otherwise, hindi kami magkakaintindihan. That's also how I was able to understand the kind of, the development thinking of the course author, which is a big part of the project.
Right.
Beyond the quantitative aspect, the
Right.
qualitative aspect of the project
Was
heavily
also heavy
relied
talaga.
on the way the authors were able to develop their courses.
Right. And also, I think it was also because the project was really needed by the institution. So we at the back of our minds, we always understand that this is not only a research. We're not doing this research because it's just a research project. But there are big implications sa atin, sa practice natin, sa university. That's why we were really trying to understand how authors write their course materials, how they organize the resources in the course sites, and how the students engage with these resources. So kaya marami ring side yung mga, I mean, we were looking at the quality and the cost, but we also actually realized a lot of what's the practice, in the teaching learning practice ng natin at saka ng students natin, how they engage with the materials. Kaya for us, That was the parang side benefit, ano? Benefit ba yon or, or
Yes, ma'am.
di ba, no?
We got to understand so many things.
Oo.
Ako personally, I got to understand so many things about how we deliver our courses,
Yeah.
and it's very important for our future course development projects. They're very important. Marami siyang itinuro
Marami
sa
kaming
atin.
na-realize, yeah. So ready na kayo makita yung results? So, so we were able to present the results of the study during the Open Education Global in Cape Town. So basically, we divided the presentation into three main areas. So yung extent of use of OER, then the impact of OER on quality, and then the cost effectiveness of OER. So how many courses use OER? So ito yung number, yung tinatanong mo kanina, Yeye, number of, ilan yung ni-review. So the number of courses included in the review of the modules, so 16 courses per area or discipline, and number of modules included. So nakita niyo 154 modules sa education, 213 sa health, 168 sa development. And then the percentage of use of OER in the courses, so 25% sa education, 50% sa health, 12% sa development. Actually, when we were trying to analyze this, bakit marami sa health? It's actually because of the International Health Program. Kasi it started late yung program na yan. So the International Health Program started Myra 2012, 'di ba? International Health. So kaya meron na tayong idea about OERs. That's why the development of the courses in IH is already resource-based, and there are resources already, OERs already incorporated in the modules. Kaya mas marami yung percentage of use of OER in health. But in terms of the number of modules per discipline, pinakamadami din yung health, 13 to 14 modules on average. Then we have 9 to 12 sa education, then 10 to 11 sa development studies. So we were saying, baka kailangan i-recommend sa health, pwede bang babaan ninyong number of modules? So ang dami, 13 to 14. But anyway, what are the types of resources used? So in terms of the types of resources, according to media format, nearly all of the courses have text in them. So mas textual pa rin yung types of resource that we're using in OU, not videos. So it's mostly text pa rin. Although of course there are web pages, videos, and slide presentations. What are the sources? So many of them are links to internet, although there are still print copies used in education and development courses. Types of licenses. So marami pa ring copyrighted materials na ginagamit. So you can see here in this graph. Although yung may Creative Commons license, medyo madami na rin ha. So given that we only started looking at OERs in 2011, and these courses were 2015, so meron na ring awareness about Creative Commons license. Then public domain, so you can also see them as sources of OERs. How were these resources used? Kasi we are looking at, di ba, ang pag sinabi nating OER, so it's part of the definition that you reused or remixed or redistributed, di ba? So, but if you look at the how these resources were used in our courses, most of them were actually used as a whole. And then used in part only, so may a few of them, but very, very few actually revised or remixed these resources. So we're not unpacking yet the OERs. We're actually just using them as is. Pero the potential of the use of OER is that you actually can remix what's in there, or you can revise to suit whether your context or resequence or you translate it. So these are the potentials that can be done with OERs. Pero hindi pa natin ginagawa yon. What types of learning activities were involved in the use of these resources? So most of the learning activities were still reading and viewing. So as you can see. And also discussion in forums. So, not too many are sharing it in their workplace or community. Yung mga adaptation in community or application in the workplace or community. Okay, so that's the extent of use of OER. So what about the impact on quality? So I'm just showing you buti na lang pala eduk yung pinili ko. Andito si Cha. So I'm going to show you the results of the impact on quality dun sa education courses. So these were the results in terms of the percent of learning resources that matches the learning objective, 58.6. Dapat ano yan, parang hindi yan pasado, no? Tapos relevant to module topic, 72.4. Up to date, 31%. Provides accuracy of information from a credible source, appropriate to the level of the course, appropriate to the learners. So, ito yung perception ng faculty. Iba pa yung perception ng students. But in terms of perception ng students, pasado naman. So meron discrepancy, no, yung perception ng faculty and students. So mas mahigpit yung mga faculty. Sino ba nag-assess nito from the faculty? Hindi, wag mo na i-disclose.
The faculty respondents there are not the course authors. They are reviewers, experts of the field. So they are actually not the authors of the study.
And that was really the design
Yeah.
of the study. Kasi we wanted to have an honest opinion of parang reader siya. So that's there is that discrepancy in the perception between faculty and the students in terms of in terms of the characteristics of the learning resource. About the rating of the learning resources, so from the faculty side, so the highest rating is 5, lowest rating is 1. So in terms of the sufficient number of learning resources, so mataas naman, 4.38. At saka yung all module topics are covered. So ang pinakamababa ay yung about addressing different learning styles and also yung variety of resources in terms of type of media. So that's from the faculty perception. The student perception, so they actually rated high yung sufficient number of learning resource. So meaning to say marami talagang pinapabasa, no, mga faculty natin. And also yung all module topics are covered. So I think in terms of the number of resources, so that's good. Ang mababa dito is yung addressing yung sufficient variety of resources. So yung combination ng print, video, audio, and multimedia. So we have to improve on that also. And also addressing different learning styles. So I think consistent naman with the faculty. In terms of the characteristics of learning activities, so from the faculty experts, actually ito happy tayo dito. So look at this one. So the relevance to the learning objectives, appropriateness to the level of learner, fostering critical thinking, fostering creativity, and promoting collaborative learning. So mataas naman yung meaning to say our course materials, I mean for me this is very good kasi it's actually this is about the teaching distance education, 'di ba? So how the course materials are actually fostering itong mga learning activities na to. Sa students, so mataas din except dun sa collaborative learning. Siguro ayaw nila ng collaborative learning. So mababa yung rating nila rito. Or no, sorry, I think they wanted more pala kasi percent of learning activities to. So they wanted more, nakukulangan pa sila. So dun sa faculty, parehas pala 71. Oo. So that's the thing pala, we have to improve on the promotion of collaborative learning. Okay, what about rating of the learning activities? So looking at, remember yung dimensions of quality that I discussed earlier. So these were the same items that we used for the rating of the learning activities. So the highest rating were on the variety of learning resources, and the learning activities facilitates learning. And lowest was about allowing students to interact with the learning resource. So this is actually surprising kasi what we were thinking is that OER would actually allow students more to interact with the learning resource. So I think there's a need to focus more on how the resources are actually being used, or what are the learning activities being done around the resource to allow the students to interact more with the resource. Kasi remember kanina, ang sinabi lang read, view, discuss. So I will have to design our course materials, our course sites that will have more opportunities for students to really interact with the resource. So you want to say something? Sa
Yes,
eduk to eh.
yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. I think it is to maximize for us to maximize the benefits of the resource.
Right.
We really have to design the course in a manner wherein students will have greater interaction with it.
Right.
So, kung tama kayo ma'am, kung makikita niyo yung how we use the resources dun sa module review form, karamihan doon ay read and discuss, view, ganun lang. Pero kaya sayang kung yung potential ng resources, regardless of whether it is an OER or a copyrighted material, it's really how to maximize it by designing a course or an activity around it. Medyo dun talaga siguro
Oo,
tayo
doon tayo medyo
kulang.
kulang pa. So we have to improve on that. Sa students, it's basically the same. So if you can see, they also rated low yung allowing students to interact with the learning resource. So this was actually this finding was is really very important in how we are designing our course materials and our course itself. Kasi hindi lang course materials. So sometimes you have a course materials prepared by another author, pero ikaw ang assigned the faculty in charge. So you prepare a course guide, right? In the course guide, you should be able to put enough learning activities to engage students in interacting with the resource. So that's really the role of the faculty. Okay, so in conclusion, ito yung sa education. So the faculty perceive that resources used are mostly appropriate and relevant to topics. So we're happy about that. Among students, resources perceived to match learning objectives and relevant to learning objectives, fosters critical thinking. So, but then of course, as we were saying kanina, merong some of the weaknesses that we'll have to address, such as yung engagement with the resource itself, interacting, the students interacting with the resources. Okay, so next, what about the cost effectiveness? So how did we deal with this? So basically, as I said, we really looked at the length of time spent by a course author in designing and writing the course. And for the value, uh, we looked at the author's salary given his or her rank or position. So remember, kasi may flat rate tayo eh, in terms of paying authors. So we pay author 60,000 pesos for the as a contract price for writing with us. Ito yung resource-based course materials. But for the purpose of this study, so we had to define another way of costing, and so we based it on the author's salary given his rank of position. So, kasi aside from the honorarium that we give to other faculty, pag ikaw ay full-time faculty sa OpenU, you're not given honorarium, but you're actually given credit load as a writer. So, kaya may basis din yung pagpili sa or pag-measure ng cost in terms of author salary. And then what else? So we're also looking at this question, what is more cost effective, OER or non-OER? So the cost effectiveness is based on cost per unit of quality of course materials. So we're not only looking at the cost itself, pero we're looking at yung cost and quality at the same time, kaya cost effectiveness. So we will see this later dun sa results.
So we have a question from Mom Mendy over at the chat rooms. Okay. She says, I would like to commend the research team headed by Doc Sheila on impact of the use of OERs because this is very important from the point of view of administration. I'd like to know if there was an attempt to do a cost or benefit analysis. While we understand that the research conducted is very involved as it is, administration's interest would be policy recommendations based on cost of and benefit of using OERs in course development and delivery.
Actually, Ma'am Mendy, good morning po. So actually po, we did not do a cost-benefit analysis. So what we did, as I'm explaining now, is a cost-effectiveness analysis. Kasi we want to look at how effective are uh, are these OERs. And the measurement of the effectiveness was based on the quality since we measured it anyway. So that's why it's looking at the cost per unit of quality of the course materials. So I'll be able to explain this more as I go through the slides. So why we looked at cost effectiveness instead of cost benefit. So given this example, kasi remember I was saying kanina, there are factors that affect or the length of time of authors, the length of time that authors spent in developing the materials. And also, these the same factors can also, aside from their, for example, the years of teaching, the position, rank, appointment, educational background, experience in developing course materials. So we were trying to find out baka may effect siya dun sa amount of time. Pero if you look at the number of the characteristics of the course authors for those who wrote for non-OERs versus those who wrote for OER, medyo comparable naman sila. Kasi, of course, we want to find out na there's no bias, di ba? So more or less, halos parehas. Yung non-OER may 13 years of teaching versus 10, which is not really a big difference when you think about it. In terms of the position and rank, nearly the same. May difference ng konti, pero halos pareha. So we were saying hindi naman siya ganun kalayo in terms of yung comparability nung the sets of course authors who develop for specific course materials. But if you look at the time spent in developing the course packages, ito yung medyo revealing. So if you look at the non-OER, the average number of modules per course sa non-OER was actually greater, 12 modules. Average to ha, compared to OER na 9 lang. And then the average number of resources per course, pag non-OER 19, pero pag OER 33. Average number of resources. Ang dami, di ba? Pero it also, if you look at it, well, kasi nga, hindi naman siya nagsusulat ng content. So, dapat mas marami siyang resource na, well, that's the assumption. And then the average number of learning activities per course, mas marami rin dun sa OER. There were 26 average number of learning activities in the OER compared to 13 in the non-OER. And in terms of the average number of hours spent in writing course packages, so mas less yung sa OER, 135 hours, non-OER was 148 hours. Go to the cost effectiveness analysis. So remember the cost of the valuation was based on the salary of the course authors. So actually, hindi yan RBCP, dapat yan ay non-OER. So sorry, hindi ko na na-correct. So that's the comparing the, there are two perspectives, a faculty and a student perspective. Kasi the quality was based on the rating ng faculty at saka ng students on the quality of the resource. So if you look at the cost for the non-OER from the faculty perspective, it's 2,406. And then for the OER was 2,253. The same din syempre yung costing nun dun sa student perspective kasi nagkaiba lang sila dun sa quality measure. In the quality measurement, mas mataas yung rating ng students. Remember kanina, mas mataas naman talaga yung rating ng students kaysa dun sa faculty experts. And if you combine the cost and effectiveness, and then you come up with the ICER. ICER is the incremental, it says there, the incremental cost effectiveness ratio. So it represents the average incremental cost associated with one additional unit of the measure of effect. So ibig sabihin nito, yung ICER ng active was minus 373 Doon sa student perspective was minus 306. So if we look at it this way, in a diagram, ito yung ating analysis. Meron kang four quadrants. So if you look at the top, there's the new program is more costly, and then sa baba, new program less costly, and then dun sa horizontal axis on the right, new program is more effective, and new program is less effective. So if your values, yung kaninang kinompute natin, falls on any of the quadrants, if you look at the quadrant dito sa upper right, if your values fall into that quadrant, it means that OERs are more costly and more effective. Pero if you look at the right quadrant, the lower one, it means OER dominates kasi it's a more effective tapos less costly. If you look at the left upper quadrant, it says OER is worse than non-OER kasi more costly na siya tapos less effective pa siya. If you look at the left lower quadrant, OER is less costly and less effective. So ano yung gusto nating quadrant dyan? Where the values that we computed earlier should be. Siyempre, yung OER dominates. Kasi it means that it's more effective, at the same time less costly. That's how cost effectiveness is actually interpreted. So this is actually heavily used by medicine, itong cost effectiveness. So because of this valuation. So you're aiming for programs that are more effective pero less costly. So sa tingin nyo, saan nag-fall yung ICER natin kanina? May price yung tama. Ito may price kayo. What do you think? So ito yung ating values na lumabas. So if you look at, remember meron tayo kaninang the cost at dun sa vertical axis, and then dun sa rating scale in the horizontal axis. So if you plot the value for the OER, what was the cost and what was the rating versus the non-OER, this is how it looks like. Is that good or is that bad? It's actually good, di ba? Kasi given this, remember ito yung table natin. So I just plotted yung cost na 2,406 for RBCP and 2,253 for OER. And then the quality na 3.31, 3.72 given the faculty perspective. So and then plot it on this the diagram, and you actually come up with this. So this is just a way of explaining that at least for the data that we were able to see, so for this specific study, it looks like that using OER was cost effective for us. But then again, in the interpretation, we have to review all the assumptions that were used in the costing. Kasi kung mali yung assumptions, then there will have to make adjustments dun sa cost effectiveness. So we're open to suggestions if there are other things that you think we haven't really considered in the cost effectiveness. Kasi ang medyo tricky dito, this method is, as I said, is used mostly in health, pero we're applying it sa education. So there could be variables that were not considered in the costing. So yun yung medyo limitation ng study. But from the beginning, we've been saying we only looked at the time element in the costing of the development of the course materials. So we might have missed other factors, but that was the easiest actually for us to quantify kasi yung cost ng development ng course materials. Okay, so other things aside from that, we also looked at the top 3 factors in selecting resources used in the module. So just to look at what were the considerations of the course authors. So sa education and actually halos pare-parehas naman sila eh. So they're looking at relevance, appropriateness, and credibility. So yung iba nilahat na. And then we were able to see in this particular cost effectiveness that the use of OER in course materials was seen to be cost effective compared to the use of non-OER in terms of cost and quality. So yun yung aming conclusion. So any question before I proceed to the next one? Yes po.
2,000. Kasi kung i-expand mo pa, pwede kasing yung OER magiging mabibelong din dun sa upper right na quadrant if ever. Kung ilo-lower mo pa yung costing.
The only reason why was this was the range of
The data.
the data that we have. Kasi ano yung minimum na cost that was paid to the author. Oo. So kaya ito yung lumabas. But you're right, kasi kung may napasama doon sa course authors na mas mababa yung bayad, then it's possible kung ano yung sinulat niya, whether non-OER, OER, mag-iiba yung data. Oo. But the limits that were considered here were actually the ones in the data. Oo. So, kaya it was important to establish in the beginning yung comparability ng dalawang sets ng authors. So that's why we were happy. Hindi namin dinesign yon ha. We were happy na more or less hindi naman sila magkaiba ng profile yung mga course authors. But you're very right kasi yun ang hindi natin makita dito how sensitive this is kung may mga ganong variations. So baka swerte lang kami when we selected the course authors that it turned out like this. So a replication with a more controlled scenario siguro would help us. I think just increasing the sample size would help us a lot in really making sure that this is valid. Kasi kukonti lang yung number of authors din eh. Yung ilan nga ba yung 12? Parang 12? Parang 12 eh, yung na-interview namin. 14, o yun. So that's still small, di ba? So we might want to increase this, replicate, and then also yung sinasabi ko kanina, make it a prospective cost analysis rather than retrospective. Kasi marami ring biases that can come in, mga recall biases. Kasi matagal nang nangyari, so hindi na nila maalala. So it might be, there could be a better tool in terms of looking at the costing. Plans for publication. Ito na yung medyo sad. Kasi we were supposed to write for a book chapter in the OER impact studies. So in fact, na-receive ko na yung libro today. Today ko lang na-receive. So we were not included in this publication. So because of the delays that we encountered, so that was not a happy. But anyway, we're still thinking that we can still publish. So maybe we can publish dun sa International Journal of Distance and E-Learning natin. Or we can also do another study to make to have a more robust study. Kasi marami ring limitations that we found eh. So, for example, dun sa costing, baka dapat mas marami, make it prospective. And then for the quality naman, since now we're very familiar with what's needed for a proper module review, and also what really are the differences or variations in the practice, then we can just focus maybe on those in terms of gauging the quality of the course materials. Kasi yung dating na-develop, parang ang lawak ng mga tanong kasi we actually didn't know yet what were the dimensions of quality that's important in our own context. So, kasi walang similar study that we found out in the literature eh. So, kaya I think that would be the positive side of this project. So, since we have experienced the doing it, then maybe we can do it again and replicate the study and come up with better results, and also siguro mas confident tayo sa results, and maybe policy implications sa Sabi nga ni Mamendi, it's what will be the institutional policies that should be in place. Cha.
Ma'am, definitely the project has finer points. And those fine points of the project, we can still, release them in article publications kasi masyado siyang malaki. So we just need to get the fine points and then pick them. Tapos yun yung ilalabasan kasi ang dami nating nakuha. Ang dami na valuable yung mga research, and as you mentioned, there's no similar research from the literature that's already reported in the literature, and definitely we can report them. The instruments themselves are something that we can report kasi dinevelop natin siya from scratch, from as in zero. And the pedagogical theories that we needed to incorporate to form these instruments are really valuable. So I think those are promising points from the research. We just need to sit down and
Actually, ang feeling namin lahat noon, para kami nagpi-PhD.
dissertation.
Para kami gumagawa ng dissertation for a PhD.
HD.
So it was really hirap talaga. But then we also enjoyed it naman, 'di ba, Cha? So there were yung mga brainstorming sessions that we also enjoyed. Kasi coming from different disciplines, so and also yung the fact that we're reviewing our own work was also engaging for us. So kaya yun din I think yung mga benefits of engaging in research. So other questions or comments? Meron kayong questions? Diyan, meron? I mean, nagtatype. Bilisan nyo yung nagtatype bago namin i-close.
So again, we have here from Mendy. Use of cost effectiveness is certainly acceptable with respect to the research objectives. Glad to see the study did the comparison between use of OERs and non-OERs. Congratulations. I certainly think that the study should be published and pursued as an institutional research agenda. I agree with Cha that the instrument development is in itself an output that could be written up and published. Tapos another comment from the chat room, thanks po sa speakers. Hindi ko ma-identify yung person. So,
thank you din. So, that's why I selected this particular research to share with you kasi marami kaming natutunan. So, from the proposal stage to the research and also up to the dissemination. And I think hindi pa tapos kasi it feels like unfinished business pag hindi mo na-publish eh. So, of course, we are happy na na-present namin in a panel doon sa Open Education Global and it generated a lot of interest as well. Yun nga lang, we have to write, I think, talaga what were the results and also pursue some other areas that we need to restudy. So for institutional policies or programs that that have to be implemented in the university. So may call ba ulit ng IDRC? Baka may ibang topic na sila. Oo. So pero kasi ang OERs talagang bago pang konsepto sa Pilipinas eh. So when recently when I this is on a side, when I was in a meeting sa UP Manila, I tried to introduce the concept. Hindi talaga nila narinig pa. so I think it's important that we have the advantage being in the Open University. Parang mas madali natin maintindihan what's the paradigm about. When we say open education, we have a concept what it is. When we say open educational resources, clear sa atin what it means. So I think we have to capitalize on that advantage to also lead the research on these issues. So open education, open educational resource, and we're practicing it eh. So we're practicing all this. So ang importante, we're documenting also our practice towards quality improvement. So dapat yun yung ating, I think, next steps. But I'm very happy that this research conversation happened. So nung nag-invite si Seth, quantitative research, ang lawak naman ng topic na yan. So anong gagawin ko? Magdi-discuss ba ako ng research design? So parang hindi ko rin maintindihan in the beginning. But then it dawned on me na a sample study, and this one is, I think, a very good example of how we can actually engage in quantitative research in open education dito sa Open University. So wala na bang follow-up questions? So kung may question sila, mag-email sila kay Seth. Kay Seth ano. So with that, I think I'll end this talk. So thank you very much sa participation. Thank you. Thank you.